Good afternoon, my good people. It's your favorite podcaster, Tommy Green. I'm back with another episode of Convicted Conversations. With me today, I got a very special guest, very dope individual I met maybe about a couple years ago.
A couple years.
Yeah, definitely kindred spirits. You know, we had a lot of commonalities, both from incarcerated, both working out in the community. He actually had a longer stint in the community than I did, so I kind of learned a few tricks that I got in the bag from him, whether he believes it or not, or whether he knows it or not. But without further ado, let me introduce Mr. King Michael Taylor. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Man, I appreciate it. Appreciate you for having me, man. How you doing?
Good. You ready to get into this?
I'm ready to go.
So first of all, just a quick shout out. You're the creator and owner of Taylor Kings Incorporated, is that right?
Taylor Kings Incorporated.
Really dope organization. I did a little research on it. Looking forward to hearing a little bit more about it a little bit later. But for right now, let's get into who Michael Taylor really is. Like, tell us about where you from, how did you get into the street life, we like to call it, or whatever. What kind of led you in that direction? And then we'll take off from there.
Okay. So, as Tommy said, my name is Michael Taylor. So before I was the owner and founder of Taylor Kings, I was one that was, I guess you could say, a product of the environment I grew up in. So, long story short, I grew up in a single family household. My father was deceased. He was killed by Durham PD in '86. So I grew up with a vengeance against law enforcement, one. Two, I grew up in a single family household, which I saw my mother struggle continuously, which was one of the reasons that pushed me into looking for another way to bring in some income as a child. So it's safe to say I never really had a proper childhood, running around playing football, throwing balls, riding bikes, skateboards, nothing like that. I grew up trying to get to the money to help my family out. So around 13, 14 is when I started drug selling and also using a little bit. I had some uncles that was around me that understood what the game was. They was already in the game, so they taught me a lot of what I knew. So 13, 14, 15 had became the most detrimental years of my life. 13, I was already experiencing being given away by my mother, going through different, not Dorothea Dix, but Murdoch, and as I like to say, I was a inmate before I ever broke the law. But before the charges ever came, I was already fighting people not to take medicine, not to be strapped to beds, and that sort of life, living that type of way, not understanding why out of all these children in the world, it was me. So I went through that, which really put me in a state of really being rebellious. I grew a hate for my mother. So it was more so, you can't tell me nothing. You gave me away 2-3 times. There was no love here. I'm going to be here, but I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You can't tell me nothing. My daddy already gone. You done gave me away. So I don't have a love for nothing. I'm just lost. And pretty much that's what sent me down the road. Only thing that I understood then is I was always the leader. I had a team when I was out there. And my team was the reason that gave me the pull to keep pushing in that way that I was pushing. Understanding that we all come from that environment, and the only thing that we knew was, hey, he's brave enough to make this call and make this decision, so we're going to push with him, and we're going to make it happen and make the money to bring the money back to the table. So that's where it hit for me. Then I started catching charges. I started getting locked up, started going to Durham County Jail, spending time incarcerated, spending time away from my family, spending time just by myself, you know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much of, and the thing that really brought me to the drug, and see, I did a lot of white collar crime. I did a lot of reader writer bursa, printing cards, bank scamming, stuff like that. So it wasn't just drug involvement for me. It was more so You know, the bank closed at 12 o'clock. If I put this check in there, I know they got to 12 o'clock to release at least half of the funds. So I was sending checks all around, you know.
Wow.
Had people cashing checks here at 12 o'clock, here at 12 o'clock, here at 12 o'clock. So before you know it, by 3 o'clock the next morning, I'm already sitting on $1,200, $1,300. You know what I'm saying? So you got people struggling in the communities or in the hood to make that amount of money, but I was already bringing that in by 5 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah.
Which put me in a position to go to the plug and buy a half a joint and get back out there and do what I needed to do. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
So you was kind of hustling from both sides of the fence. You was white collar and in the street.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. How old were you when you was making that type of money?
Well, I didn't get into the white collar transactions until I was more so, I'm gonna say around 18, 19, my early 20s.
Gotcha.
And I was really bringing in, I was probably making around $3-4 grand a week.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a lot of money for a young man like that.
And then the drugs I was involved with, 13, 14 on up.
Wow.
So my early involvement in drugs was more so just marijuana, you know.
Gotcha.
And then I started learning the difference between cocaine and heroin. I started learning the difference in between the way that it's manufactured, what it does, why it is that much more than the other average drug. So
Gotcha.
I was always attracted to the large increments of money. I wasn't attracted to, if I know I can go get an ounce of cocaine for, back then it was $700-800. You know what I'm saying? And I can turn around and make almost $2-3 grand off of that, depending on how I'm stretching, depending on what I'm doing, depending on what I'm giving out. You know. So I got into that whole lifestyle, and then it became when the time started getting issued. You know. And the time started to being you know, you get locked up at, you know, 17 and you don't come home until you're 19, you know what I'm saying? So you start having that time away from home, you know what I'm saying? That time away from actual people who really did love you, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah.
So when we were talking about earlier about you know, when you actually did an actual sentence, which was in 2016, right? And prior to that, you were doing all this other stuff and then kind of got out of that, and you was actually doing community work when you caught your time. So bring us back to that point, like when you were out in the streets and then you started getting into community work, how did that transition happen? What made you want to say, hey, I'm done with all this, the white collar, the drugs, everything. I want to try to do something for the community.
So around 2016, I was incarcerated in Durham County Jail, and I was in the hole. It was me, KJ, Papa from MacDougal, Earl Rebels. It was a lot of us, you know what I'm saying? We Randall Bass. It was a lot of us in the hole at the time, and we was in the hole, and we was, you know, we were all talked through the vent, and I was in my cell at night, and I was in this hole for about maybe 7 months. No co-defendants, no nothing. I had 6 counts of armed robbery against me, pending North Carolina Central University.
Hold on 1 second. For our people that ain't too familiar with the slang or whatever, what does the whole mean?
That means solitary confinement,
Gotcha.
which means you come out an hour every other day handcuffed and shackled at the waist. You got to put the phone on your ear, still handcuffed, dial the number, take a squat, and you have your phone conversation.
Gotcha.
But so I was in the hole, and I was laying in this cell that I was already in for about 70 some odd days. Had no court date, had no co-defendants, had none of that. And I'm sitting in this cell, and I've been in this cell for 75 days.
Right.
And I look up to the roof, and I see this. Somebody had got up on the roof. I don't know how they did it, but it said push. And God gave me the first nonprofit, which was Praise and Pray Until Something Happens, which the acronym was Push for the Youth Foundation.
Okay.
So I started Push for the Youth Foundation in jail, and I came home, and I met this lady by the name of Diane Powell out of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Gotcha.
I met Diane Powell. Diane Powell introduced me to corrective living. I'm gonna say it in that sort. Yeah. So she took me in with her. She taught me a lot about nonprofits. She taught me a lot about bridging. She taught me a lot about just working in the whole. 2018, Robert Muhammad out of Durham, North Carolina. Mr. Muhammad called me. He had a gig set for the Mean Man March in D.C. phoned me, Mike, I need you to come up here. You know, people need to see, they need to hear. So I went, you know, did the Mean Man March, got down, came down. I got people interviewing me all over the place, and that's what set me into that proper space of going forward, you know,
Gotcha.
understanding that I can accomplish my goal without the negativity.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, and see, that's what my problem was at first, because it was hard for me to break off of what I had going on.
Right.
I had no other way of income. You know, I was already a convicted felon. Jobs I went to turned me down, so it was hard for me to cut my ties with the street life, because that's where my backup was at. You know, when it came down to me traveling this event and that event, I didn't have nobody giving me gas money to get there. I didn't have nobody to put me in a hotel to house me, so I had to perform, get it, and have it when I travel. You know what I'm saying? So that's what my hardest part of my transition was really cutting ties with the drugs. You know what I'm saying? So I say about when I went to prison was 2017.
So you went from okay, your last bid was, you said you were sentenced to 3.5 in feds, but you did 18 in the feds and then the rest in the halfway house. That's how kind of fed time goes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so tell me, how does a guy go from doing community work, running a push organization, doing your community events, to catching fed time and a fed charge? Tell us about that.
So 2017 was when I caught my federal indictment. 2017, we had just did 2 peaceful protests in Durham, North Carolina, and we was also doing some things out in Raleigh, North Carolina. The thing that led me to my time was I had a conviction to come up on me. I was at a event at Mount Peace Baptist Church 2017. I was doing the Stop the Violence campaign. They had booked me to come out and speak. I went out, did the engagement, and I used to keep my record in my briefcase, and I used to keep a bullet with me. So my thing was, I used to always pass my record around the room to show the children, this is what a convicted felon status looks like. So when you go apply for a job, this is what these companies are pulling up. When they tell you that they can hire you, this is what they're seeing on your back, on your background, on your jacket, on your record. So I would pull it out and pass it around the room. So on my record, it stated that I was a convicted felon. So in this room, this particular night, there was a guy in the back of the room, which happened to be an undercover officer. So I began to pass the bullet around the room. That bullet was my prompt. That was my engagement piece with the youth. And what I used to do is, what about this bullet makes you feel superior? What about this bullet makes you feel like you can't be tampered with, or you're not to be played with? So it would strike so many different conversations, and the youth used to say, well, you know what, Mike, when I got that gun on me, man, you can't tell me nothing, man. You know, I feel like this and I feel like that. So it would pull so much of the narrative the way I needed it to be to go ahead and trigger my counter is what I was setting up for. So this particular day, I was leaving the event, and I get pulled. You know, when the officer comes up to the vehicle, hey, Mr. Taylor, you got, you know, and that's what it was. Hey, Mr. Taylor, how you doing? How you doing? You know what's going on? Now, at this time, I'm in a company vehicle that's registered to my company, so when you run the tag, it comes up as Push for the Youth Foundation. I'm listed as an authorized driver, but you don't know I'm Mr. Taylor until you run my license. So when he got out of the car, the first thing was, hey, Mr. Taylor, how you doing? And I'm like, okay, how you doing? So he said to me, you just leaving this event back off of Mount Peace Baptist? Yes, sir. I had the flyers on the front seat, had my name, pictures, and everything on. I said, yeah, I'm just leaving the event. Okay, you got a bullet in your pocket, right? Correct. Now, I haven't had any charges in 13 years prior to this one charge. So I said, yeah, you know, I don't have a bullet in my pocket. I mean, I said I have a bullet in my pocket, but you know, I'm not on no paperwork and nothing. I don't have, you know, I'm not on no parole or probation, nothing like that. So he said, well, yeah, it's still against the law for you to be in possession of ammunition as convicted felon. So I said, well, you know, that's kind of strange to me. I never heard that. Long story short, they take me downtown. They hit me with the charge. So when I go before Mr. Lunsford the next day, he looked at me and he stated to me, what are you doing in here? And this is a judge that we just did the peaceful protest with downtown Durham for 2 days.
Wow.
So he's already familiar with me and where I'm going and what's happening and all of this different stuff that was on the table at the time. Right. So his words to me was, "What are you doing in here? I just saw you." So I said, "You know, Your Honor, only thing that I can say is it's not bad to have you fighting for your life." So he began to push everything out of the way and say, "Madam DA, bring me Mr. Taylor's caseload. Let me see what's going on." So they brought the caseload to this man, and in this caseload, I didn't have the citation number associated with my charge. So he stated on record, "DA, this man why is he in handcuffs? It's not even a citation number that goes along with his charge. Why is he on his jail line?" Come to find out, they didn't have the citation number listed because felony in possession of ammunition is not a charge punishable by the state of North Carolina. The state can't punish you for having a bullet in your possession as a convicted felon. That's a federal charge. Right. So they gave me the charge to put it in court so that the DA would send it to the federal government, and that's what happened in my case. So they sent that charge off to the federal government after it was thrown out that day.
All for one bullet.
One bullet. And in parentheses on my charge it states possession and felony in possession of ammunition. In parentheses it states one bullet, because with the feds they have to be accurate. You know, everything with them is accurate. So they have to put how many it is, what it is, the type of grain of bullet, all of that goes in your paperwork.
Wow, that is insane. So look, let me ask you, like, so you've been in the streets. You know, did what you did, decided to make a ballot change. You're doing peaceful protests, you speaking to the youth, you're out in the community, you even in events with judges.
With judges, lawyers, DAs.
Right, and then out of nowhere, you get hit with a charge for a prompt that you were using for a positive event.
Positive event.
And they gave you time for that. What was going through your mind when you got that time after doing all of that? Like, really?
Well, honestly, I'm happy you asked me that, because that was my beginning of my encounter with the Creator. You know, Now one thing about it is, it's a difference when you got your mama and your daddy, your great grandma, everybody else praying for you. But it's a difference when you start to pray for yourself, articulating things into the atmosphere to be received by the Creator. Right. So when I got my time, I actually was upset with God. I started cussing God and everything. I'm gonna be honest. You know, at the end of the day, bro, I'm doing what you told me to do, what you called me to do, and this is my thank you. You know what I'm saying? This is what I get. You know what I'm saying? So I went on a strike. You couldn't even come talk to me about God. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So then when it got to the point where I was getting to the yard, and God spoke to me on the bus in transit, and He spoke to me and said, "Mike, everything that you're going through is a part of the story that I have written for your life. This is nothing that you've asked for, but everything is associated with where you're going." So I still didn't understand that, and God then spoke again and said to me, you know, it's impossible for you to take over territory that your feet never tread over. So I got to send you here so that you can feel what they feel. The Bible says that you must be able to become all things to all men with the hopes of win. But it's impossible to become to a man what you never experienced or what you've never been through. So God sent me there to deal with myself, all of the self-hatred that I had towards myself, because I grew up thinking there was something wrong with me. That's why my father was killed. That's why my mother never had time for me. So my mind was in that train of thought. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to do whatever I got to do to bring this money to the table so that my mama love me. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to do whatever I got to do to bring this to the table so that society would say, you know what, he not like them. He getting money. You know what I'm saying? Because back then, money was the answer to everything. You know what I'm saying? Wow. So I went through that whole situation of just, you know, and then that was my first time ever really praying by myself. You know what I'm saying? So when God started to really show up and started to purge me of things and clean me and show me, giving me the blueprint, let me know, Push for the Youth changed into Taylor Kings Incorporated. Taylor Kings was God was telling me that I am the creator. You crafted by my hands. Genesis 1:26 said, I created you in my image and my likeness. So this is what I need you to do for the people, for the men. You know, you got to take this and put that back in the community. So at that point, I started meeting people in prison. And when I got to prison, I applied for a job in the chapel. And everybody kept telling me, Mike, oh, it's going to be about 6 months for you to get that job. There's so many people on that waiting list. 2 weeks later, Mr. Muhammad from Durham, North Carolina, which was the Muslim chapel, he called me up there. He said, hey, I'm going to give you the job. Now, mind you, jump line of everybody. I got the job at the chapel. And some of the perks I had as a job, as a chapel, was I could come in and listen to any gospel music I wanted to listen to, pray, read, study by myself. I didn't have to be in the yard. I was excluded from everything. I could just be me and him. So we had some great conversations. Me, him, and there was a guy named Mr. Langston, which was the Christian chapel. So we had some great conversations. And at that time, they started to challenge me as mentors. Every man in the world, I'm going to tell you now, you have to have at least 2 or 3 mentors in your life that can keep it real with you, that's going to talk to you, that's going to call the ace and the spade. These men became mentors in my life. And they challenged me to be the best I could be. You know, they would give me, pages out of workbooks, hey, and I would go back to the cell, and in these pages, it was ask me questions like, as a man in a position like this, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? And it really challenged my way of thinking then. You know, Muhammad would see me, he would speak life into me, and he would tell me, you don't understand what I'm doing right now, but I'm speaking life into you. So when you get into that next hard place of your life, this is going to resonate with you. It's going to come back to you.
Right.
So prior to all of that, it was one man in my life. And this man, his name is, he goes by Prophet Derek E. Bridges. This man is a man that sold into me at 13 years old when I first started going through what I was going through. And he prophesied to me. And I'm going to tell you that I remember the day like yesterday. And he put his towel down in my neck and poured a whole bottle of oil on me. He told me, he said, Mike, you don't understand why I'm doing this, and you're not going to understand now, but I'm doing this because God told me to do this. And at this time, I wasn't really with the church situation. My mama went to church every day. I wasn't worried about church. I didn't, I'm a kid. I'm trying to, chase women and whatever else I had on my agenda. I didn't care nothing about no church, no ministry, no prophetic, no none of that. So when he prayed over me, he told me, he said, man, listen, you're going to be a father to a nation. That was his words to me. You're going to be a father to a nation. God is telling me that he's finna prepare you to be a father to the nation. So at that time, I didn't understand. I'm like, what you talking about, father? Man, listen, man, go ahead, do what you're going to do so I can go sit down. You know what I'm saying? So when I got to prison, that whole service replayed. You know what I'm saying? Vivid. Everything on point. The whole service is replaying. Boo, boo, boo. So when I got to that part, God started to give me scripture to go look up. So I'm looking up the scripture. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, what is this? 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 Putting it all together. God started showing me his plan for my life. So at that point, I decided, I got to focus on what's right. Because even with Push for the Youth, I was still straddling the fence. You know what I'm saying? I was still making a little money, but I was still indulging in the drugs. You know what I'm saying? I would take... Say I probably make $500 off my nonprofit. I'm going to put $300 in the hood. You know what I'm saying? So God couldn't trust me as a steward over the income because I wasn't balancing right. You know what I'm saying? I was still going back and forth with it. But yeah.
So for our next section, right, we're gonna transition over to your. So what is Mr. Brown's position at Taylor King?
Anthony Brown is actually the CFO.
The CFO. Okay.
But
cool.
but I'm gonna say he wears a million hats.
Okay.
All
right. So for that transition, I'm gonna let Mr. Brown come up here and take my spot, and we're gonna talk a little bit about Taylor King. Is that okay with you?
Oh yeah, that'll work.
For the transition, adjust your tie. Do you adjust your tie? I'm gonna switch it like that. Okay.
I put it all the way up.
Like
Okay, now the Taylor King's segment or hour, but not a whole hour. First of all, tell us what Taylor King's is. Well, Michael, first you, Mike. Tell us what Taylor King's is, how did it start, and then Pastor Anthony Brown, please introduce yourself and tell us what your position is with Taylor Kings and why is Taylor Kings a very important organization.
So, if I may say, Taylor Kings is my heart. It's the pride and the joy, it's the inside being of myself. Um, Taylor Kings is definitely an organization which is geared to revamping men in today's society. I'm gonna pass it over to Brown. I get a little emotional when I speak about the brand itself because it's just that deep. But I'm gonna pass it over to Anthony Brown and let him introduce himself and speak on the King movement.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Brown. I am the CFO slash president of the Taylor Kings Incorporated movement. What does Taylor King mean to me and what is it? Taylor Kings is an organization where we focus on the restorative lifestyle change process of becoming a family for disadvantaged men who have had trouble and struggles in their lives, to help them, give them the skills that they need to really change their life. Taylor Kings is so important. Mr. Taylor don't even know this, that when we first spoke about Taylor Kings was an organization that he was speaking about that I needed to be a part of. So it's not a haphazard result that me and him are working this nonprofit together. So Taylor Kings means a whole lot. It's a family of a family, but more importantly, it's a way to give back to the community, to help men from different backgrounds to really become the men, the fathers, the sons, the husbands, whoever they are to their relationships. They need to become better men, and that is, they need to be a king themselves, fashioned and tailored from the King of all kings.
That's dope. So, again, if it's anything that you want someone to take away from this podcast about Taylor Kings and what y'all do, what would it be?
I would say first and foremost, man, as a man, we have to understand and learn that there's nothing wrong with crime. There's nothing wrong with being lost. There's nothing wrong with not knowing your purpose. The issue is when you get complacent and you get comfortable in that position, you know. So as a Taylor King, and from the desk of the Taylor Kings, you know, we say this: find your group of men, whether or not even be the Taylor Kings, find your group of men that can pour into you, meaning that they're going to be transparent. When men come to the Taylor Kings, be transparent. We telling you about our charges. We telling you where we feel short at. We telling you where we feel short at in marriage or, you know, relationships. We telling you where we feel short at as fathers. We telling you where we lack and feel short at. So it's all total transparency. At the end of the day, the Taylor King movement, as Brown stated, this is a movement set for the revamping. This is what we do. We teach men what credit is. We teach men how to grow organization. We teach men how to grow for a profit. And the reason being is because we all lack the Father in some sort type of way. You know what I'm saying? So this is the fathering organization to really teach that missed principle in our life. So, you know.
I think one of the key components, what I want men to come away with thinking about this organization, is it's okay to have a flawed life, but you have to become bold enough to confront your flaws to become a better you.
I like that. Mm-hmm. That's dope. That's dope.
When you really understand who you are and who you were created to be, based off of scripture, based off of what I call sacred text. I don't care if it's from the Muslim faith. I don't care if it's from the Christian faith. I don't even care if it's coming from what I call the Hindus' faith or Taoism. It's always about confronting who you once were, to become a better individual, to pour back into the community, to pour back into life, because You were created for greatness. You can't receive greatness until you're willing to humble yourself, to be poured into, to be mentored, to be coachable, to be teachable, and say, you know what? I had a dark past, but I want to change that past into a bright future so I can be a better father, so I can be a better husband, so I can be a better son, so I can be a better brother. Whatever it is, there are all sorts of perceptions that people perceive me by based on the color of my skin. And it is my right to walk in my lifestyle to let people know I am not what you say I am. Don't judge me by what you think. Come and get to know me. Better yet, I'm going to come and get to know you. I'm going to force the issue. How am I going to do that? By demonstrating my lifestyle before you with complete transparency, but not doing it by myself. First of all, I'm getting instructions from the King of all kings, but then I got a family that's willing to support me, to let me know this brother's with me. And if he with me and he's okay, that means I'm okay.
Right.
That's it. And I'm gonna read this right quick so people to know. So we got this saying called "Who Are the Kings?" So the Taylor Kings Incorporated is a program. It's a diverse group of men aiming to create a safe, supportive space for men of all ages and backgrounds to embrace their true potentials as leaders. Achieving this goal requires individuals to confront past challenges, take responsibility for failures, and actively seek personal growth. Our organization is dedicated to guiding young men through a transformative journey from immaturity to maturity, equipping them with central skills to become accountable in individuals, contributing to the positivity to themselves, family, and society. So that's the gist of what the Taylor Kings are.
That's a dope movement. Can you tell the people how to get in touch with you, websites, contact info, any upcoming event?
Reach out to us at www.tailoredkingsinc.org, and you can also reach us at email tailoredkings@gmail.com. So that'd be TAILOREDKINGZ@gmail.com. Any bookings, any events, anything of that sort.
So before we transition out, I want to thank Mr. Brown for coming in, helping us plug Taylor Kings. Ladies and gentlemen, please look for Mr. Brown's interview next season when we do our friends, family, and workers. He's got a great story. We built in my kitchen for a little while. Tell me a little bit about his background, how he got involved in this type of work. And man, it's a beautiful story. Can't wait to put it out there. Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right. Thank you.
Man, I really appreciate you coming doing the interview. Again, bro, you're doing great things. Look forward to working with you in the future. To all my people, you know the motto, as long as you're still breathing, you got another chance to right all your wrongs. Appreciate you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. 919 Legend, that's the YouTube channel. Catch us there. And again, next season, look for Mr. Brown. We got a great interview coming up. Y'all have a good one.